I finally understand the hype now. Over the last 4 months or so, I've been crazy addicted to this game called Deadlock. If you don't know what Deadlock is, it's Valve's new third-person MOBA shooter. And technically it's not new. The game came out, about 3 years ago or so, but I'm just now getting into it. So it's new to me, but probably old to you. Now, I'm someone who isn't really that big into MOBAs. I've gotten into League and Dota, but not many of those MOBAs really stick well with me. And the last MOBA that really caught my attention is this game called Paragon. And if you know what Paragon is, congratulations, you qualify for a senior citizen discount. MOBAs just have never been a genre that I necessarily liked. They're very unfriendly to new players, and a lot of the communities are generally toxic. And to anyone that knows what I'm talking about, unless you're hitting faker levels of macro and know what every champion does under the sun, you were considered dog shit by 99% of people who played that MOBA. I only really wanted to play these games with friends and never wanted to boot them up on my own. Whether it was League, Dota, or really any MOBA, I never felt compelled to want to play these games on my own accord. Of course, everything that I'm talking about here does not just apply to League, Dota, or MOBAs in general. You can honestly apply what I'm saying to any online multiplayer game you've ever played. But what makes Deadlock so special to me that despite me naming all of these things of why I don't really enjoy the genre, I have put in so much time playing Deadlock that I'm having fun with it. Well, it's not really as simple as I'm making it out to be, so I kind of have to start from the beginning. So let's just get right into it. Alright, so as far as you know, Deadlock is this fancy new third-person MOBA hero shooter-esque type game. A lot of people like to compare this to like League meets Overwatch or Overwatch meets League, whatever works for you. But Deadlock functions a little bit different than both of these games even combined. Sure, Deadlock has the hero shooter aspects of Overwatch and plays like a MOBA like any other MOBA, but I feel like these two game comparisons doesn't really do it much justice, so let me explain. Now, where it differs from every other MOBA but throws an interesting twist on it is how the game actually plays. You see, League, for example, uses a system of 3 lanes, 5 roles. You have your top, mid, and bottom lane, and your 5 roles are usually going to be your top laner, your mid laner, someone in the jungle, and your bottom lane is usually going to consist of your bot and support. Each player plays in their respective roles, pushing their lanes or looking for ganking opportunities, Usually they're always going to stay in their lane and aren't really going to deviate from any other lane outside of that. Your top laner is usually going to be in the top. Your mid laner is going to always stay mid. Your jungler is going to either roam in your jungle from bottom side or top side, or try to steal something in the enemy jungle's line. You kind of get the idea. If you've played League before, you kind of know what I'm talking about. But you see, Deadlock kind of takes these fundamental aspects of roles and laning and they kind of just throw it out the window. Yep, that's right. In Deadlock, there are no roles. There's not necessarily a top laner, a mid laner, a bottom laner, a support, or even a jungler. These roles just don't exist in the game. Now, you may have done an eyebrow raise when I mentioned that there are no roles, so you might be thinking, how does it even function like a MOBA if no actual role exists? You still have the ability to take jungle camps and push waves with minions and taking towers and of the like. So the MOBA aspects are still there. There is still a shop and everything you need to consider. Deadlock comprises most of the MOBA elements and just kind of puts their own little twist on it. You see, with no one person being tied to a role, there's a lot more diversity in the gameplay and how you basically function in a match. Not every single match is going to basically play out the same way, so when there's no roles to be had, then you can pretty much do whatever you want. Now, with there not being any roles, you also might be asking yourself, well, how does a jungler work? How does a support work? Is there even a bottom lane? Well, the jungle works a little bit different that I will get into in just a moment. Jungle camps can be taken by anyone on the map, so even though there's not necessarily a jungler role, everyone is capable of being able to take any of these camps. The jungle camps also range from different types of various levels, meaning that they're either going to be, your small camps, your medium camps, or your big camps. These will give you various different types of money, obviously your smaller camps are going to give you the least amount of money, while your big camps will give you the most amount of money. They all are going to vary in different health. Your smaller camps are going to be easier to kind of take out. Medium camps are going to, take a little bit of effort, while the big camps give you the most souls, but takes also the most amount of effort to take out. They're also going to be the camps that are going to take the longer amount of time to take out, especially if you play a hero that doesn't farm these camps very well. But I'm getting way too ahead of myself, and I kind of don't want to overload you with information. So again, let's just start one at a time. So let me just go ahead and explain the laning phase of Deadlock. Now, the laning phase is the most important phase of any MOBA. And before somebody goes ahead and hits me with the actually, the laning phase is not the important phase of the MOBA. It's actually the phase after, and whatever, dog. I don't care. Let me explain. Your laning phase is important because it's usually going to determine how the first 15 minutes of the match is going to play out. During this phase, everyone is pushing waves, everyone is taking trades in lane, and everyone is trying to take down their first tower. Everyone has to play the phase, so obviously we're going to talk about it first. Deadlock puts a little spin on the laning phase because a lot happens even in the first 2 minutes of that phase going on. Minion waves function like normal. About every 30 seconds or so, a minion wave is going to spawn. And from here, you're pretty much going to be pushing your wave, freezing your wave, etc. Again, if you play the MOBA, you know how the laning phase is going to go. But here is where the laning phase kind of differs from every other MOBA I've played. In most MOBAs I've played, the only way you earn any money from that minion is if you last hit the minion. That last hitting is very important because if you don't last hit that minion, you don't get any money from it. Deadlock does it a bit different, and there is still the ability to last hit a minion, but now when a minion dies, a soul orb is going to float above their head. After about a couple of seconds or so, that soul orb will float in the air and it will pop and you will earn that currency. You don't necessarily have to last hit the soul orb to now earn money from it. Just being near the minion while the soul orb pops is enough for you to get that money. Now obviously I'm making it sound easier than it is, right? Well, that's kind of the kicker, right? When that soul orb floats up in the air, you have the opportunity to shoot that soul orb. Shooting that soul orb instantly claims it. But you also have to be careful because if the enemy team shoots your soul orb, they will deny you that soul and you won't get any money from it, and they will earn the money from it instead. I like this system of going back and forth claiming and denying souls because it means that you have to actively be in lane. You just can't be playing very passively or looking for ganking opportunities so soon. So this mind game of denying and claiming souls comes into play very often because that means every player needs to be actively contributing in lane. Meleeing the minions also auto-secures that soul, so good laners will do this often so that they're not completely starved of money. So you're securing souls, you're eating good, everything's going great into the lane. What do you do next? Well, obviously, you start building your items, so let's talk about that. Itemization is probably one of my favorite parts about Deadlock. Every character can be built very differently and everyone has a different build. Items are built on this system of about 3 groups. You have your gun items, your health items, and your spirit items. Gun items are all about amplifying your gun damage. They can do a vast majority of things like give you a better fire rate, apply movement slows, or even some bleed damage. Think of it like you are building attack speed in League, if that's a fair comparison. Green items in Deadlock are all about survivability. They're going to do the very basic thing of giving you more health, but they can also do things such as help you build anti-heal items, lifesteal items, or even items that helps you deal with a ton of CC. You generally always want to build 1 or 2 green items depending on what the match calls for, because with no green items, you simply have no type of resist to basically anything. You will just be susceptible to every CC and every damage type in the game. And if you're wondering why you are probably dying a lot, it's probably because you haven't built a green item. And the last thing we're going to talk about are spirit items. Spirit items are all about boosting your ability power, and a lot of heroes can make good use of this. Think of it like, building ability power in League, or, AP, whatever you want to call it. The terms all here apply the same. Each hero will build some form of one or two of these categories. Some heroes will build a lot more spirit because a lot of their abilities apply spirit damage, while others will probably do gun if they are M1 carries. You will adjust your kit over time, and a lot of these items will shape how your character is going to basically play during the match. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is what really gravitated me toward Deadlock and why I even got interested in the first place. And that's the movement. Movement in Deadlock is so satisfying to pull off. And to quote that one video,
boy, white niggas love movement, boy.
Movement was the thing that immediately stuck out to me with the game, and it's the one aspect of the game I dedicated to getting good at. Pulling off good movement is like the rite of passage for most people, because once you hit it, it's like crack. You just can't get enough of it. Every character has your run-off-the-mill movement. Everyone can run, dash, jump, wall kick, and even wall slide. And then what differs is that every character comes kitted with different run speeds and dash speeds and even stamina bars. Some characters will be kitted out with 4 bars of stamina, while others are only rocking 2. You can even crouch slide, which carries a lot of momentum when you're coming off of a dash jump or you're going downhill. Sliding during a dash also gives you unlimited ammo, so there's this whole tech dedicated to keeping your ammo uptime in lane, especially when you are on even the tiniest slope. There's even other little bits of movement tech, such as a zipline dash boosting and mantle sliding, and so much more. There's just so much little tidbits of movement that there is even a whole community dedicated on Deadlock movement. That's how good it's gotten. I'm only just barely scratching the surface when it comes to Deadlock movement, but if you are familiar with Valve games, pretty much most of everything applies here. Somehow they're just really good at making a game that feels great to move in. I'm telling you, nothing feels better than pulling off movement you have practiced to either chase down an enemy or even escape from a ganking opportunity. It's really satisfying, and I think it's the thing that most people should honestly dedicate to learning. It's not required to be good at the game, but trust me, you'll feel really good once you practice moving around the map. Now that I've gotten done gushing about the movement, let's get back to some gameplay, so we're gonna talk about the objectives. Outside of shooting minions in lane all day, Deadlock has a plethora of other little things you can do when you are not actively pushing a minion wave. I mentioned earlier that the jungle is basically a free-for-all, so anyone can take these camps at any time. But the other objectives on the map also include something known as a center sacrifice. They're basically like little slot machines that appear on the map, and they will give you a good amount of souls, but also give you some buffs as well. The souls that the center sacrifice provide are kind of whatever, but the main reason why these things are a hot commodity is because the buffs they give are very important. By punching the machine, you sacrifice some health, and when you have lit the entire machine up, it will go into this roulette style rotation, and once you have hit the machine fully lit, you cash out on a good amount of souls and some nice buffs. These buffs are random sometimes. You'll get either more health, fire rate, or even an increased ammo capacity. Even if your character doesn't necessarily benefit from whatever random buff that you got, you should always be taking these things as you see fit. Safely though, because man, these things are hot. If someone sees you taking these, they'll try to stop you. The next little small objectives are the bridge buffs, and at around 5 minutes or so, these 2 random buffs will spawn on either side of the bridges on the map, and they will range from either gun, casting, survival, or a movement buff. Unlike the center sacrifices though, these buffs are not permanent and they will go away after some time or when you die. The big objective that pretty much turns the tide of every match is the infamous mid boss. The mid boss, if it wasn't obvious, is located at the bottom of mid lane. At around 10 minutes, the mid boss will spawn on the map. Think of it like Baron or whatever you want it to be. Even though it spawns very early on in the match, it's usually not advised to take this boss because no one is nearly powerful enough to take it in enough time. It does require a huge team effort to take this boss down in a small amount of time, and it's usually only taken when a minion wave has pushed up very far or when half of the enemy team is dead. Once the mid boss is defeated, down descends the crystal that pretty much is a GG for whatever team gets it. It's the Rejuvenator. This is the Rejuvenator. Once it has been broken, everyone gets an instant revive that lasts a total of 4 minutes and can only be consumed by 3 teammates. Once you die, you consume a rejuve charge and you get instantly revived on the spot. Once 3 teammates have died or the timer runs out, there is no more rejuve. Most matches pretty much get decided by this one objective alone. The next objective is the Spirit Urn. The Spirit Urn will periodically spawn in on either of the side lanes. I kid you not, this objective should not be ignored by any means necessary. The Spirit Urn is another objective that can make a difference. Depending on which team is pretty much leading in souls, the urn will have a designated drop-off point that is favored by the team who does not have the soul lead. They contain a massive amount of souls that when dropped off, it is shared between the entire team. Whoever drops it off also gets some added buffs as well. It's not really as simple as I'm making it out to be, however, because once you pick up the soul urn, you can't use your weapons nor can you use your abilities. You are basically vulnerable to being attacked when you're running this thing, so running the Spirit Urn requires much needed team effort. Oh, and don't even think about stalling and just holding on to the urn. After a bit, it will just start doing damage to you. It is a pretty important objective to be mindful of because even if you have a bad start in lane or someone on the enemy team is very fed, the urn can help you catch back up. The last bit of objectives on the map are a guardian, a walker, 2 more guardians at your base, and then 2 shrines you have to defeat so you can finally take down either the Archmother or the Hidden King. It just really depends on what side you spawn on. They have 2 health bars you have to chew through, and taking out the first health bar instantly cuts the respawn timer for anyone who's dead. And of course, once you get their health down to 0, you win. I kind of did throw a lot of information at you, so I do want to take some time to go over anything that I might have missed. Now, I briefly mentioned that there is a melee system in the game, and there's light and heavy melees and also a parry system. Melee attacks are pretty much a regular part of the combat, just like your abilities, so get used to seeing it very often. Light melee attacks are quick hits that don't do very much damage, and heavy melees are huge wind-up attacks that have a specific sound cue when anyone is doing them. Either of these melees can be parried, and when you get parried, you're pretty much stunned for a solid 5 seconds. Getting parried does end in a quick death a lot of the time, so more skilled players will be ready to parry you more than often. There is also another game mode called Street Brawl that is outside of the main game mode. Think of it like ARAM from League, but they're more round based and they're faster, more shorter paced rounds. These can last maybe a good to 15 to 20 minutes. They are a great way to get a feel for your character abilities before you jump into the main game. And with all that being said, let me get into some closing thoughts. I have talked a lot and rambled a bit about Deadlock because it genuinely has been one of my favorite games in the past 4 months or so. I've put in a lot of hours. Again, MOBAs haven't really been my favorite genre to really play. I've played League, I've played Dota, and I've played a bunch of other MOBAs, but I've never felt the need to want to boot them up of my own accord. They just never really sparked the itch for me like other video games do. But Deadlock did change something. I find myself often watching a lot of pro play or trying to improve my movement, and even when I'm not playing Deadlock, I'm just thinking about Deadlock. I know I'm very late to the party, but I believe the best time to get into the game as any is right now. It's an ever-changing game and the community is extremely refreshing. Don't get me wrong, you will still encounter toxic players. That's just the unfortunate side effect that comes with playing a game like this. But most of my playtime, I encounter people who are willing to communicate on voice chat and use pings. Even if you don't win, they aren't blaming you, they're kind of humbling themselves. The game isn't out yet, in fact it's still in a closed state, but if you do want to get to play the game, all you have to do is have a friend who basically has an invite to invite you there and you get to play it. I should mention that this game also gets constantly updated. A patch or so goes live almost weekly depending on community feedback, and trust me, Valve is for sure listening to everything. Hell, in the Deadlock forums, if you give a suggestion on a character ability name or what their animation should look like, and they like it enough, they will just include that in the game. I'm just absolutely obsessed with how much the community cares about the little things. Even outside of gameplay, I find myself loving the small interaction each character has, reading on their lore, and so much more. This is probably what it felt like for people who were big on Team Fortress 2. And Deadlock even has a very encouraging modding community. All in all, I love the game. I have a little over 150 hours in the game, and I've just played it mere months ago. That might not seem anything, but again, this is a MOBA, and I don't put in this much time into a MOBA that I don't like. Anyway, I appreciate anybody who stuck around for my rambling about a game I like. There's gonna be more to come, so expect to see more. Bye bye.